What if I told you that the most lethal weapon ever used in ancient warfare wasn't a sword? It wasn't a catapult, a spear, or a siege tower. It was the human brain. Long before modern psychological warfare, army commanders realized a terrifying truth. If you can break a man's mind, his hands will drop his weapon long before your army even reaches him. Today, we are diving into 5 of the most brilliant, bizarre, and downright terrifying mind games ever played in human history. This isn't just history, this is the dark science of human fear. Number 1. The Sound of Hell. Aztec Death Whistles and Whistling Arrows. Imagine standing in a dense, quiet jungle thousands of years ago. You are a warrior, trained for combat. You can handle a blade. You can handle a shield. But suddenly the air itself begins to scream. Not a human scream. It sounds like a woman being tortured, multiplied by 1,000 voices, echoed through the trees. This wasn't a ghost. This was the Aztec Death Whistle. When Aztec armies marched into battle, hundreds of warriors blew into small, skull-shaped clay instruments. The internal chamber of these whistles was engineered specifically to create a chaotic, shriek-like frequency. Scientifically, this frequency hits the human auditory cortex and immediately triggers the brain's fight-or-flight response. Before a single Aztec warrior even stepped into view, the enemy troops were already trembling, sweating, and paralyzed with instinctual terror. And they weren't the only ones who weaponized sound. Thousands of miles away, Asian nomadic tribes used whistling arrows. These arrows had hollow carved bones attached to the tips. When shot in mass volleys, the wind passing through the holes created a deafening, high-pitched screech. Imagine standing under a black sky, hearing a rain of screaming metal plunging toward you. You couldn't see them coming, but your mind convinced you that death itself was whistling from above. Number 2. The Phantom Army. Genghis Khan and the Art of Illusion. In the 13th century, a man named Temujin, better known as Genghis Khan, conquered more land than anyone in human history. But here's the secret historians don't tell you often enough. His armies were almost always outnumbered. So how did he win? By making the enemy see ghosts. During his campaigns in Central Asia, Genghis Khan knew his enemies were scanning the horizons, trying to calculate the size of his forces. So he ordered every single Mongol warrior to light not 1, but 5 separate campfires every night. To the terrified scouts watching from distant mountain fortresses, the horizon looked like an endless sea of fire. They didn't see an army of 20,000. Their minds convinced them they were looking at an army of 200,000. When the battle finally began, Genghis Khan pulled off another psychological trick. He had straw dummies tied to spare horses and dragged them along the flanks. From a distance, it looked like endless waves of reinforcements were pouring over the hills. Finally, Mongol armies would intentionally retreat. They would run away for days, looking weak and panicked. The enemy would break their defensive formations and chase them, only to be led into a pre-planned kill zone. Genghis Khan didn't fight armies. He fought the imagination of his enemies, and their imagination defeated them every single time. Number 3. The Cat Shield. The Battle of Pelusium, 525 BC. History can sometimes be stranger than fiction, and in 525 BC, a Persian king named Cambyses II used one of the most absurd yet devastating psychological exploits in ancient times. He was invading Egypt, but the Egyptians were formidable opponents. Their archers were legendary, and their fortifications were solid. Cambyses needed a loophole, and he found one in their religion. To the ancient Egyptians, cats were not just pets. They were sacred incarnations of the goddess Bastet. Harming a cat was considered a crime punishable by death, ensuring eternal damnation of the soul. Cambyses knew this. So, as his army marched toward the Egyptian city of Pelusium, he gave his soldiers an unusual order: paint images of cats on their shields. But he didn't stop there. Some historical accounts suggest his frontline troops carried actual, live cats, dogs, and sheep in their arms into battle. As the Egyptian archers stood atop the walls ready to rain arrows down upon the invading force, they froze. If they shot their arrows, they might kill a cat. If they killed a cat, their gods would curse them forever. The psychological conflict paralyzed the Egyptian army. They couldn't shoot. They couldn't fight back. The Persians marched right up to the walls, broke through the defenses, and conquered Egypt without taking heavy casualties. Cambyses didn't beat the Egyptian military. He trapped their beliefs against their survival instinct. Number 4. The ultimate bluff. Zhuge Liang's empty fort strategy. Picture this. You are Sima Yi, a ruthless military commander leading a massive army of 150,000 elite soldiers. You march up to the gates of an enemy city, ready to crush your rival once and for all. When you arrive, the gates of the city are wide open. There are no guards on the walls. There are no archers, no spears. Just a few old peasants calmly sweeping the dust off the street near the front entrance. And sitting atop the city wall, completely unbothered, is your ultimate rival, General Zhuge Liang. He is wearing a simple robe, burning incense, and playing a traditional wooden lute, playing a serene, beautiful melody that echoes across the silent battlefield. What do? This actually happened in ancient China during the Three Kingdoms period. Zhuge Liang only had 2,500 soldiers inside that city. If Sima Yi attacked, Zhuge Liang would have died in less than 5 minutes. But Zhuge Liang knew Sima Yi's mind. Sima Yi knew Zhuge Liang was a genius master strategist who never took reckless risks. Sima Yi looked at the open gates. He smelled the incense. He heard the calm music. His mind raced. Why is he so calm? This has to be a trap. The moment I enter those gates, an ambush will destroy my entire army. Overwhelmed by paranoia, Sima Yi ordered his 150,000 soldiers to turn around and retreat at full speed. Number 5. The Forest of Horror. Vlad the Impaler's psychological nightmare. Our final mind game is perhaps the darkest chapter in military history. In 1462, Sultan Mehmed II, the ruler of the powerful Ottoman Empire, the man who conquered Constantinople, marched an army of over 100,000 soldiers into Wallachia, modern-day Romania. His goal was to crush a ruler named Vlad III, also known as Vlad the Impaler. Vlad knew he could not defeat the massive Ottoman army in open-field combat. So he turned the landscape itself into a psychological nightmare. Vlad conducted night raids, dressed his men in Ottoman clothing to cause chaos, and poisoned the local water wells. But his ultimate strike was purely mental. As Sultan Mehmed's army marched deeper into Wallachia, they reached the outskirts of the capital city. The air grew thick and foul. And then, the soldiers stopped dead in their tracks. Spread across a field 3 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide stood a literal forest of thousands of wooden stakes. Impaled upon these stakes were over 20,000 captured Ottoman soldiers. The sight was horrific, but the psychological impact was absolute. Sultan Mehmed II was a hardened warrior who had seen endless bloodshed. But when he looked upon this endless field of horror, he reportedly broke down. He realized he was not fighting a normal king. He was fighting a man who had abandoned all human limits. The Ottoman army, demoralized and terrified by the sheer psychological weight of what they witnessed, turned around and marched back to Constantinople. Vlad didn't destroy their bodies. He broke their sanity. Throughout history, empires didn't just fall because of swords, gunpowder, or strategy. They fell because someone mastered the invisible art of playing with human fear, belief, and perception. The human mind is built to protect us, but as these stories show, under the right conditions, our own minds can be weaponized against us. Which of these 5 mind games blew your mind the most? Drop a comment down below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into dark historical psychology, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, keep your eyes open.